Hi everyone, and welcome to Team G's presentation on downsizing. Downsizing refers to the process of reducing the size of workforce by terminating the employment of employees. This is also referred to as layoff. Downsizing not only affects the employees who have to exit the company, but also the remaining employees who may feel themselves to be in a similar situation at a later time. Of downsizing for human resource management. Downsizing is common in a recessionary situation where downsizing helps to cut costs. Some companies also lay off a percentage of low performers every year to maintain a competitive and efficient workforce. This is termed as organizational downsizing, which is a reduction in organizational size and operating costs to improve the efficiency, productivity, and competitiveness. Organizational efficiency. It is an important factor that the organization's effectiveness, this being the ease and degree of success within an organization, is able to accomplish its aims. Productivity. A productivity measure is expressed as the ratio of outputs to inputs used in the production process. For example, output per unit of input. And lastly, organizational competitiveness. This refers to a company's ability to maintain and gain market share in its industry. Human resource management refers to policies, practices, and systems that influence employees' behaviors, attitudes, and performance. The advantages and disadvantages of downsizing. Scale operations. One of the advantages of downsizing is that it gives you a chance to scale your business down to a more realistic and manageable size. During periods of growth, companies tend to add personnel and equipment that serves immediate business purposes. It is natural that a company's business model or customer base shift during the organization's evolution. Downsizing is your chance to bring your company size down to something that can be more efficiently serve your customers and remain profitable. It reevaluates your business. Downsizing forces an organization to reevaluate its business process and rewrite the business plan to more accurately reflect the current business status. A business should constantly update its business plan to reflect changes in the marketplace and internal shifts that affect business productivity. The decision to downsize is part of the more important process of reevaluating the business plan and places the company in a better competitive position for the future. For example, its financial benefit. It creates transparency. Downsizing companies would need to make results transparent for the employees to see the real trends. In fact, transparency brings more cooperation within the group and within the team. The display of the production or the turnover to employees could be in terms of charts or pie charts or even a month-to-month achievement. This is actually a morale booster. It brings in teamwork. As teams get smaller, the management would need to focus on rebuilding the new team by focusing on training and incentive programs. This would create loyalty, motivation, and empowers them to directly impact on productivity. With the opening up of various communication channels, employees help to solve problems that may arise. Some disadvantages. It affects decision making. When you downsize your company, you release employees. Your company misses out on collective experiences of staff members that are let go. The company decision making is affected because the opinions and input of those departing employees will be missed. If you are forced to let employees go that have several years with your company, then you lose people with intimate experience of past decisions and how those decisions affected company productivity and profitability. It loses credibility. Outsourcing business responsibilities is one of the reasons why companies downsize. If you are downsizing due to outsourcing, then disgruntled former employees can be a source of public relation issues for your company. They can damage your company's public reputation, and that can lead to a drop in revenue. Repeat customers and potential new clients may not appreciate your decision and could pull their business. It creates less opportunities. As downsizing is said to be reducing the positions, those who who are held back in the organisations cannot look forward to opportunities for growth within the framework. Hence, it would not be an ideal place for those who wish to see growth in their career, as options become limited or nil. And lastly, it may affect bottom line. As downsizing is mainly reducing the burden on financial, it indirectly affects the overall bottom line. Like for instance, if there is a reduction in manpower, then it would directly hit the production or services, as it would be reduced when compared to previous. Though it may seem that it will increase efficiency, it may not be so. The advantages and disadvantages of downsizing. Scale operations. One of the advantages of downsizing is that it gives you a chance to scale your business down to a more realistic and manageable size. During periods of growth, companies tend to add personnel and equipment that serves immediate business purposes. It is natural that a company's business model or customer base shift during the organization's evolution. Downsizing is your chance to bring your company size down to something that can be more efficiently serve your customers and remain profitable. It reevaluates your business. Downsizing forces an organization to reevaluate its business process and rewrite the business plan to more accurately reflect the current business status. A business should constantly update its business plan to reflect changes in the marketplace and internal shifts that affect business productivity. The decision to downsize is part of the more important process of reevaluating the business plan and places the company in a better competitive position for the future. For example, its financial benefit. It creates transparency. Downsizing companies would need to make results transparent for the employees to see the real trends. In fact, transparency brings more cooperation within the group and within the team. The display of the production or the turnover to employees could be in terms of charts or pie charts or even a month-to-month achievement. This is actually a morale booster. It brings in teamwork. As teams get smaller, the management would need to focus on rebuilding the new team by focusing on training and incentive programs. This would create loyalty, motivation, and empowers them to directly impact on productivity. With the opening up of various communication channels, employees help to solve problems that may arise. Some disadvantages. It affects decision making. When you downsize your company, you release employees. Your company misses out on collective experiences of staff members that are let go. The company decision making is affected because the opinions and input of those departing employees will be missed. If you are forced to let employees go that have several years with your company, then you lose people.
Organisational efficiency. What is organisational efficiency? Organisational efficiency is the organisation's ability to implement its plans using the smallest possible expenditure of resources and is calculated using quantitative figures such as cost and time, as well as abstract concepts such as human capital. For example, if a business is able to produce 100 units of its product by spending $2 per unit, it is more efficient in production than a smaller business that produces 100 units of the same item at $3 per unit. One way that companies can do this is by downsizing. Downsizing is a common action undertaken by businesses and large-scale corporate organisations with goals such as cost-cutting, maintaining a market share, productivity, and organisational efficiency. Some examples of companies that achieve organisational efficiency through the use of downsizing are major commercial airlines such as Qantas, Japan Airlines and British Airways, Telstra, IBM, Kodak, Xerox, the National Australia Bank and several other major Australian banks which have long been renowned for their no layoff policies, who use downsizing as a standard business practice to help them achieve organisational efficiency. There are a number of factors that affect organisational efficiency of a business, such as quality of management and its effectiveness. The quality of management is an important factor to the efficiency of the organisation, as management choose which strategic plans to implement as well as how to implement them. selecting the methods, processes, and resources to use, as well as using top-performing employees in order to have time and cost-efficient labour. Effective management teams are vital to the goal of organisational efficiency, which is crucial for other business performance-related goals. Effectiveness, for example, could be where a manager develops and implements a program and then trains the maximum number of staff in the shortest period of time and for the cheapest cost possible. This would be considered efficient because the output for input expended is at its maximum. However, if this training program was unrelated to the business's objectives and was a waste of time for those who attended, then this would reflect that the manager was highly efficient but not effective. If the same manager developed a training program that was important to the organisation to achieve its objectives, this manager would be considered effective. However, if the program used twice the amount of resources that it could have used, it would be considered effective but not efficient. Organisational efficiency is important to the organisation in terms of acquiring resources and the implementation of its plans, making the implementation process more cost-effective and smoother.
What is productivity? Productivity is the measure of converting inputs into useful outputs. Productivity can be the measure of a machine, factory, person, or many other sources. Productivity can be measured by two approaches: single-factor productivity and total or multi-factor productivity. Single-factor productivity is measured by looking at the ratio of outputs to a single category of inputs, such as energy or labour costs, whilst total factor productivity measures the ratio of total outputs to total inputs. What are the factors impacting productivity in Australian businesses? There are a number of factors within the Australian business landscape that impact productivity within organisations. These include the rise of automation and the current advancements in technology, including their impact on the internet and digital platforms, the focus on productivity growth that directly relates to the rise in automation and technology, outsourcing of work to other countries in order to lower costs such as those associated with manufacturing and supply chains. According to the Productivity Commission, the Australian Government's principal advisory and review body on micro and economic policy and regulation, the biggest impending impact to productivity in Australian business, government included, is the rise of digital disruption and how organisations will tackle it. The impact of downsizing on productivity. Downsizing happens for a number of reasons, though the core ones are generally in response to a downturn, an attempt to improve efficiencies, appearing more attractive for the prospect of mergers and acquisitions, or because workers in autonomous roles are able to be replaced by emerging technologies. Whatever the reason for downsizing, there's always an impact to organisational productivity. And whilst there are obvious impacts such as increased profitability, increased competitiveness, and higher revenue returns per employee, the gamut of negative impacts stack heavily against the positives. The negative impacts of productivity in downsizing sit heavily within the human aspect. Often the focus is put on the employees that will no longer be with the business. However, recent research shows that the employees that remain after a downsizing event can have a significant impact on the overall productivity of a business. These negative impacts include survivor syndrome, which is a feeling of guilt associated with being one of the employees that has kept their job. Often those suffering survivor syndrome will develop a sense of injustice, resulting in a loss of trust with their employer. Increased stress and anxiety is a major side effect of downsizing. In 1988, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health commissioned a study which identified psychological disorders among the top 10 leading work-related injuries and diseases within the United States. Decreases in morale, employee disloyalty, lower employee self-esteem, and increased absenteeism are all among the negative impacts of downsizing and relate heavily to the feelings of stress and anxiety that come from being part of an organisation experiencing downsizing. What can organisations put in place to protect productivity during downsizing? In order to protect productivity during downsizing, you first need to protect morale. This can be achieved by providing a level of transparency to the remaining employees within the organisation. What does this mean? It means have clear and open lines of communication, encourage workplace flexibility, show understanding to both the employees that have been lost to downsizing and also to those that have kept their roles and may be feeling the effects of survivor's syndrome, increased and changing workloads, and insecurity around their future. Provide resources for coping with change, such as self-assessment instruments, and encourage employees to use them, and for employers that have wellness programs and initiatives to encourage the use of mental health benefits.
Organisational competitiveness refers to a company's ability to maintain and gain market share in its industry. Having a competitive advantage means that an organisation is able to outperform its competitors. There are many factors that contribute to an organisation's competitiveness, such as customer service, quality of products and services offered, pricing, work processes, cost efficiency, and of course, human resources. When done well, downsizing can transform an organisation's culture and processes by letting go of employees or roles that are no longer contributing to the competitiveness of the organisation or meeting its strategic goals. It can also create an organisational structure that is more lean and mean. Instead of a traditional hierarchical structure, many organisations are now introducing flatter structures that cut out levels of middle management, offer more responsibility to employees, and increase competitive advantage. This can help employees feel more autonomous, but on the downside, it can also restrict opportunities for promotion and place less importance on specialist skills. Downsizing can also enhance an organisation's financial competitiveness by reducing expenditure. Downsizing needs to be conducted with a long-term perspective instead of as a short-term cost-cutting strategy. It can take several years for organisations to realise the financial benefits of downsizing. And downsizing during an economic downturn can be reactionary, and organisations that downsize to cut costs quickly are less likely to be successful than organisations that strategically restructure their workforce to streamline operations and enhance efficiency. And downsizing can also make an organisation more flexible and responsive to internal and external challenges, allowing the organisation to gain and maintain market share in its industry. To ensure that downsizing will increase an organisation's competitiveness, it is important that it is used as part of an array of strategies to improve the organisation's performance. If organisations only lay off employees without redesigning processes and structures, the remaining employees may be forced to take on more work, resulting in an overworked staff, which can lead to reduced productivity, quality, and service. However, if the organisation also redesigns processes and structures and provides the training and support necessary, the remaining employees can work effectively. Some of the other strategies to enhance an organisation's competitiveness might include offloading unprofitable business units, reducing levels of management, maximising production efficiencies through the use of technology, or outsourcing some operations. A slash and burn approach can be detrimental to employee morale and competitive advantage, so it is important to reduce the workforce with a view to focusing resources on key performance objectives. The decisions around how to downsize need to be made very carefully with the organisation's strategy in mind at all times, as opposed to downsizing as a reactionary measure. It is vital to have strategies in place to increase or maintain employee satisfaction and morale. If employees feel supported and satisfied in their roles, They are more likely to deliver quality work, be more productive, and offer higher levels of service, which all contribute to satisfied, loyal customers and increased organisational competitiveness in the long term. To motivate and retain talent during downsizing, many employers are now offering incentives such as training, career development, financial incentives, and flexible work arrangements. Because it can take years to see the full effects of downsizing, it is important to monitor the impact of the downsizing and make necessary adjustments. There may be post-downsizing actions required to ensure that the organisation is increasing its competitive advantage.
Is General Motors successfully downsizing? Last October, General Motors announced that it would close its last remaining hometown factory, the Detroit Hamtramck assembly plant. This closure resulted in the termination of 1,500 workers. Whilst the intention has been to reopen and resume production, 200 staff will not return and productivity will drop by 20%. This comes after an earlier cut this year that saw 1,000 workers cut from the evening shift due to moderating sales. GM still has 17 North American assembly plants focused on building cars. While sales of GM's fleet have been deteriorating over the last 20 years, competitors haven't been losing sales at the same rate. In 2017 alone, GM's sales have plunged 18.4%, whilst the rest of the industry has dropped a combined 9.4%. GM is steadily losing human capital, productivity, and is flailing when it comes to organisational competitiveness. Exploring the concepts that we've discussed throughout our presentation, GM is an example of how downsizing can occur because of an inability to reevaluate business, maintain and increase productivity, and maintain market relevance in a responsive way.